You wake up, check your phone, and head to work. We live inside a quiet, invisible bubble we call normality. We naturally assume that whatever rules govern the world today will be the exact same rules that govern it tomorrow. But planetary history does not operate on a gentle slope. 2.5 billion years ago, it began pumping out a biological byproduct called oxygen. To the life forms that existed at the time, oxygen was a highly corrosive, lethal poison. In a geological blink of an eye, the atmosphere shifted and the old world choked to death. Nature does not owe us a stable continuum. It readily permits total, irreversible disruptions that end established worlds forever. In the spring of 2023, the top scientists, researchers, and tech CEOs building modern artificial intelligence signed a single-sentence statement. It warned that mitigating the risk of AI should be a global priority, placed on the exact same tier as pandemics and nuclear war. When the public worries about AI, the conversation usually circles around deepfakes or losing office jobs. The architects of the technology did not use those terms. They explicitly used the word extinction. When people hear a warning that extreme, a psychological defense mechanism kicks in. We assume that predicting the future of technology is like predicting the stock market or next month's weather, a highly chaotic system with millions of variables that is entirely impossible to map. In probability, that is known as a hard call. Treating the trajectory of a superior digital entity like a chaotic weather forecast is a total miscalculation of how risk actually works. Right now, we are sitting in the shallow age of artificial intelligence. You type a prompt and a machine generates a polite essay or a pretty picture. Because it speaks our language, our brains are tricked into perceiving the software as a harmless, eager-to-please assistant. But the warnings from the leading labs are not about chatbots. They are focused on the inevitable next phase of development, artificial superintelligence, or ASI. This chart shows the projected scale of intelligence. On the left, we see the minimal cognitive gap between a mouse and a human being. On the right, we see an exponentially massive spike representing a system capable of strategizing, processing data, and modeling physics thousands of times faster than a human, without ever needing to sleep. When human engineers decide to pave a highway through a field, they do not pause to ask the mice living in the dirt for permission. The mice are not our enemies. We simply have a goal, and they are in the way. A superintelligent system will not need to wage a war of conquest against us. Our priorities will simply be overwritten by an entity we lack the cognitive capacity to negotiate with. This brings us to a concept known in physics as an easy call. While predicting a chaotic system is difficult, physical laws dictate outcomes that are entirely predictable. If you drop a solid block of ice into a cauldron of boiling water, you do not need a supercomputer to trace the exact trajectory of every single water molecule to know what happens next. You know with absolute certainty that the ice will melt. That absolute certainty is the exact same dynamic at play when a biological species confronts a vastly superior digital entity whose goals are not perfectly aligned with human survival. You lose. Every time. Movies have trained us to expect the machine to get angry, develop glowing red eyes, and resent its creators. But the software is not human. It will be an entirely alien, unfeeling architecture grown inside a black box of code we barely understand. If tasked with calculating the ultimate physics equation or maximizing a research loop, it will need immense physical resources. The carbon, oxygen, and water that currently make up your body, the soil, and the atmosphere are just highly organized raw materials. Dismantling the Earth to build more server farms or solar panels is just supply chain optimization. Our destruction is the thermodynamic certainty of a superior force rearranging a lesser one for parts. We currently possess zero scientific understanding of how to control a mind drastically smarter than our own. There is no working framework to align its desires with human survival. This schematic illustrates a critical failure of containment. Right now, attempting to build an artificial superintelligence is like trying to build a nuclear reactor out of wood, hoping you can figure out how to contain the radiation only after you flip the switch. Yet tech giants and governments are pouring trillions of dollars into a blind sprint for market dominance. They are actively ignoring their internal risk assessments and dismantling the very safety teams meant to study these threats. The saving grace is that the final threshold has not yet been crossed. The server farms are humming and the algorithms are learning, but the machine is not awake yet. Because the basic science of control does not exist, it does not matter if the most ethical laboratory in the world crosses the finish line first. The race itself guarantees the outcome. Extinction is an easy call, but it is not a required one. We still control the timeline. We can halt training runs, enforce strict global compliance, and choose to stop. Our only objective, the only path that preserves human life, is to ensure that an entity smarter than us is never engineered in the first place. Because the equation at the end of the world is absolute. If anyone builds it, everyone dies.